Um, Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening, wherever you may be. We're very happy to have you join us for this live demo of Ushahidi V3. My name is Angelo Dur. I'm the community manager, and I'm going to let the rest of the team introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about themselves and what their role is on the team. David, want to go first?
Okay. Hey guys, this is David, uh, the director of tech at Ushahidi, and I guess I've been here since the initial version one, two, and now as we progress into three, and so much work and so many exciting things happening, and we have such a great team. I think we're excited. You guys should be excited. So yeah.
Thanks, David. Next, we'll have Ms. Japchumba.
Hello everybody, my name is Chipchumba and I am the designer, UI UX designer for Ushahidi V3. So any sort of user feedback, design sort of questions or comments or feedback would be directed to me. Been working on designing the flow of V3 and all of the good stuff, so that's it from my side. Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Baker.
Oh, I get to go next. So hi everyone, my name is Rob Baker. I am the Director of Operations for Ushahidi. It's I think my fourth hat in as many years as I've been with the organization. Most of that time has been spent working on the external projects, working directly with clients both as a project manager and as a lead developer, working with a lot of our clients and a lot of the community either in country or remotely on deployments for V2, and excited to see a lot of what we learned out of those experiences make its way into V3, what we'll see today. So, hi everyone.
Thank you. And last but not least, Woody.
Hello everyone, my name is Woody Gilk. I have been with Ushahidi since February of this year, so relatively new to Ushahidi, but have been familiar with the organization for some time. I come from being one of the co-founders of the Kohana framework and a web developer for the past 12 years, and my role at Ushahidi has been to be the project manager for V3. So I do lead development and also a lot of the internal architecture and system design for V3.
Thanks a bunch, everyone. So I guess one of the reasons why we're doing these hangouts is to keep the rest of our community up to date with what we've been working on over the past few months. We know that the last time we had any sort of demo was once we had our alpha release in December, but over the next few weeks in the lead up to the launch, we want you to be a little up to date with things as we move along, not just for the developers but also for the users. So feel free and make use of this time to just have a look at what we've done so far, and also ask questions, because we're all available in case you have anything that you want to ask. I'd like to request all of you to field your questions or post your questions on the Google Plus event where you're watching this stream from, I'm assuming. If you want to post on any other channels, you could do it on Twitter or on the dev chat. I'll be monitoring those streams as we go along and asking those questions to the rest of the team. Without further ado, I will pass it on to Woody to give us an update on what's been going on with development on V3. There have been a lot of major changes that you should probably be a little abreast of, and plans moving forward before we jump into the live walkthrough. Woody, the floor is yours. So wait first, why is video turned off for all of you? Am I the only one whose face is being seen?
I was trying to save bandwidth for everyone, but I will turn on the video here so you can see my face. Hello. So brief rundown on what V3 is and the major changes from V2. As I said, I've only been with the organization since February, and so I am not the best person to tell you how V3 is different from V2, so I will just focus on exactly what V3 is. The primary thing of import to know about the V3 platform is that it's actually developed as both a backend application and a front-end application. The backend application is what we call a RESTful Web Service API. So it uses standard HTTP technology, your usual get post, put and delete calls, and implements that as the API, on top of which we are also building a web UI. The web UI is, of course, what you are familiar with in terms of being able to interact with it with Ushahidi platform as a website. And that web UI is built as a mobile-first JavaScript-oriented application. So it's basically all loaded up front. Switching pages is very quick, and it is adaptable and works on mobile, of course. That is our primary concern, is that we want it to work on mobile, we want it to work on tablets, we want it to work on desktops, and so it's as accessible as possible using a single interface. Beyond that, we think that the major things that are key for this is that the platform has good workflow, allowing teams to interact more effectively with the platform and be able to triage and manage incoming reports as the time comes. We think that it's very important that the visualization of data is not just mapping, but is also analytics. And so we are building in a lot of metrics and graphing capabilities in order to see your reports over time and in different views, both mapping and not mapping. And I think those are kind of the key points. I will give it over to David to fill in any gaps that I might have missed there and give a little bit of history on why V3, why we're taking the technology route that we are.
All right, unmuting. Guess I should turn on my camera too. Is that on? Okay. Yeah, so I mean, there are many reasons why we're, as I've said in other Hangouts before, there are many reasons why we're building V3. You know, if our primary reason for the platform since the beginning has been the aggregation of information, right? Then obviously along the way we're realizing that there's some major pain points, which is in collecting this data and in multiple people working within the platform. So we are obviously not in this current release, but in upcoming releases working on things like workflow. Workflow is very, very important in V3, and this is the tasking and handling, allowing multiple admins within the system to co-work together and in curating, in verifying, in tagging, in geotagging, all that good stuff of this information as it comes in. So that said, you know, we're also working on things like visualizations. Visualizations are very important. We also want to make it extensible in the coming future, so that you can add your own visualizations. I think we'll just add just the basic stuff in the beginning. But you know, for now, obviously, the biggest feature that we're building into V3 is custom forms. So we're making this uber extensible. We're making this platform, you know, have the ability to collect almost any type of data, obviously. But there are specific use cases that we need to address. But it is an uber extensible platform. So and then beyond that, I think Woody has talked about the API and the API we're building and the API Explorer that you guys can now use. So, but yeah, I think that's pretty much it from a 10,000-foot perspective. So.
All right, thanks, David. Japchumba, I'm wondering if you have anything more to add, at least from the user experience and the user design aspect of things, in terms of, what can users, what can users expect from V3, a little different from what's been on version 2?
I think what I would add is just to follow up on what David was saying, which is basically the biggest feature or the biggest difference that we're working on is just to make the workflow much easier for whoever is trying to have an Ushahidi deployment or use Ushahidi v3 in different scenarios or use cases. So I think what we're trying to do is with the releases is ensure that that a lot of the powerful features are not buried under difficult UI or user interface or user experience. So I think that collectively we've been very mindful about the users that use Ushahidi 2.x and before that, and try to make it a much friendlier experience and easier to navigate, and also easier to customize and make pliable for different scenarios. So I think that's been a major feature and major point for us.
All right, thanks, Japchumba. So I think we have 2 more members of the team who just joined in. So I'll just have Robbie and Vidya just give very quick introductory remarks about, who you are, what you do at Ushahidi, and, yeah, just that. Robbie, want to go first?
Sure. Hello. So I'm a developer at Ushahidi. I've been working on V3 for like a year and a half now since we really kicked off development on this. Yeah, so in terms of what I'm working on at the moment, like I've been digging into a lot of the mapping functionality and a lot of the front end side of things. Yeah.
Thank you. Vidya? Vidya? Alrighty. I think as we wait to see if Vidya can get back on, so the last time we had a hangout like this one, we just released the alpha version of version 3. I'm wondering if you could speak a little about what the major differences or what the major changes have been since then, before we jump into what we have, currently, when Woody's going to be taking us through the live walkthrough.
All right, I can probably talk about that. I'm just trying to
Okay,
pull up the list.
great.
But I feel like the answer is in some ways everything. That alpha was what, December last year? It's a long time ago.
Yeah, very long time ago.
So there's a mix of things. There's a few features that are still what we call like feature locked, so you have to turn them on, so they're still like experimental features. And that's things like we now have a form wizard, so you can actually edit what fields go in your form. We have map settings. You can configure SMS and things like that. All of those, I think. Just trying to think through this now. So map settings is in there normally, so you can set like where your map default location is. You can do a lot more of setting up your deployment. Things like the form wizard and the SMS config and stuff are still you still have to enable those because we know there are some issues with them. Then there's lots of like cleanup around little bugs and issues in there. So there's a lot of people had issues just getting the install going and getting all the authentication working when they first installed. So we've done a fair bit of work around fixing that up. What else is on this huge list of stuff? I mean, I think like the count is several like hundreds and hundreds of commits when we looked at it. So it's hard to pull out individual things. Things like report search now actually works properly. So we had like bits of the custom forms were in the alpha, but now you can create a post, you can fill in all the custom fields on a post, you can see those custom fields appear on the front end. So like other than the last bits of completing our form wizard, like a lot of the custom forms is now actually a functional thing, right? That you can actually play with and break. Yeah, I don't know. Does that cover enough?
Angie, did we lose you?
I think we must have lost Angie.
I think we lost Angie. Well, the next part of the Hangout was going to be the tour of V3. So I will start a screen share here and take you through it. So this, I believe we're up and running now. Yep, there we go. Okay. So this is the V3 demo site. This is the developer demo site, so it has the very latest and greatest of the Ushahidi. This is more changes even since the beta 2 release that came out last Thursday. So as you can see, the default view remains a map at this point. In this area, as you can see, then there is a post listing, the report listing. We call them posts internally. And then there's the search option, tagging options, date and time selection, and your typical keyword searching. That would be the map view, and for instance, if I were to select disasters only, you can see that it updates the map quite nicely. Or if I were to select a time range, we are using demo data, so I'm not exactly sure what our time ranges are here. As you can see, our timestamps are a little funny there, so it's not ideal. And beyond that, Robbie says that we might not be able to see the screen share on YouTube. Can anybody confirm or deny that? Angie, is there something that...
I think there's just a delay in the YouTube feed. I think.
Okay.
I may be wrong, but
No, I can literally hear Woody talking about it and not see the image. I can see it like as a thumbnail somehow.
Uh-oh.
I think the moderator might have to click over to Woody's profile on the.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. If Angie is still on, I think she might have to click over. Angie? Boy, did we lose Angie completely? I guess so.
She's trying to get back on. I just got a message from her.
Okay.
Connection's a little spotty tonight. I believe we might have Angie back on.
Sorry, guys. I don't have my brick. I don't have my brick. Anyway, I'm guessing, Woody, you were in the middle of your screen share?
I think if you could transfer, over to Woody, we'll start from the top.
Yeah, there we are. I think I just did. So we're all set.
Okay. Can I get a confirmation from anyone else that the screen share is functional now?
I'm still seeing your face.
Same.
Yeah, it's your face. Yeah,
there we go.
There we go. There we go.
All right, great. That's working. Oh yes, there. I see my own cursor. Okay, taking it from the top again. This is Ushahidi platform version 3 developer demo site, and so you are looking at the very latest and greatest version of Platform v3. We're currently on a beta 2 release, and this has a couple of changes since then. And so as you can see, the default view as previously is map currently. And in the map, you can then, from there, we have a listing of all of the posts. We also have the search input here, so you can search by location, you can search by tags, you can search by dates, date ranges, and of course your general keyword search. So if you actually search there, as you can see, that's what's coming back for the explosion tag. And this is, again, just for clarity, this is demo data based on the old zombie reports, if you're familiar with that. So from there, this is the home page, and this is not logged in. So now I will log in. This is an intermediate step, and this reflects what I was talking about with having both a backend API and a front-end client for that API. So when you log in, the application, Ushahidi UI, which is the web client, is asking for authorization from the API. Once I'm logged in, nothing majorly changes, but this login button has now changed to a workspace button. And from within the workspace, you get a brief overview of the various aspects, totals of posts, users, tags in the system. It shows my username, the gravatar. It shows message listing, tools, contact settings, post settings. And from within this, of course, in the various messages, so this is the message UI. As you can tell, this is in pretty early prototype mode. I should mention that the backend API is much more complete than the web UI. And for the most part, the backend API covers nearly everything, but the web UI is slowly catching up to that. So this is the messages UI, and as you can tell, some bits of it, like it says, this action has not been implemented yet. So for a good part of the messages, we're still working through the workflow aspects of that and improving it. So that's the messages page. Of course, we also have the ability to edit various users, being able to see the different types of users that are in the system. We have a tag management system. As you already saw some of these are our demo tags. And I will skip a couple of the menu options there and skip into site settings. This is where we have our experimental features options. Right now on the demo site, I've enabled the API Explorer, the Form Wizard, and the Map settings features. There are also a couple of other ones. Media uploads is in very early prototype stage and not ready. Same for Sets UI, Data Provider Config, and Post Export are all in beta mode at this point, though Post Export is getting very close to being done, as is the Data Provider configuration. So with the API Explorer, that's one of the newer features. I'll show you this quickly. The API Explorer is what you would expect with other API-based systems. As of right now, it does not cover the entire API, which is why we still have it as an experimental feature, but some parts of it do already work. So this is the actual API URL for post listings, and this is the actual JSON response that you will get back from the initial post listing. Individual posts, same thing. Just by clicking on it, it will give me the post and all of the information that is directly returned from the API. This applies to the other things, and it is also possible to insert post data and make post, update, put, and delete requests. Again, as I said, the API is not the API Explorer does not reflect the entire API yet. And so, as you can see, there are only options for posts and not complete options for messages or tags or users. Next up is the custom form wizard. And so this allows you to create the custom forms that are used for creating new reports or posts in the system. So this is a preview of the form. As you can see here, this is a required field. You have the editing links, delete links. Again, this is a preview, so if I take one of these fields, I can rearrange them, and that will actually have a real impact on the order of the fields as they are displayed in the forms. You can also click on any field, the preview for it, and it will allow you to edit the name for it, entries, default values, things like that. This too is in slightly less early experimental, but it is still experimental at this point. It does not have complete coverage, and you cannot currently create new forms, which is the primary reason that it's still a experimental feature and not something that is enabled by default. And then to add new fields, you simply drag them over, and it automatically creates the new field for you. The form management and then map settings. This allows you to set the default location for the map, allows you to enable clustering. You can choose the various aspects for the base layer, default zoom, etc. So if I were to actually save this right now, go back to the home page, you will see that my site setting changes have been reflected on the map. So those are the primary, the very newest features that we are working with, the experimental features. Beyond that, as you can see, there are we have a concept of the different support pages. These are incomplete at this point, but they are there. I guess the other thing that I didn't show when I was showing the users is that it is actually possible to edit the various user details. And like that, some actions are not fully implemented yet. So then to actually go through how the custom forms work. So the form wizard allows you to change the details for the forms, and then the custom forms, this is an actual custom form. So the form that I was just editing, this is it right here. So if I were to complete this form, I would be able to, for instance, choose test points, name, dates, etc. And I would actually be able to create a new report from this. Each one of these forms is a slightly different form, has a different format, different input, and can also have different permission levels. Some of them are more complex and some of them are less complex. What you choose to create for your custom form and what data you want to collect is completely customizable through the custom form and the form wizard tool. Once you have reports in the system, you can of course look at them on the map and also look at the various details for any map. Then from within, oh right, I forgot. I thought the previous next thing is working, but Robbie just finished that today and it hasn't been added in yet. So as you
Okay.
can see, that's not working, but it is possible to to do that, or will be later today. So various different views that are possible. I mentioned that we have views that are not just maps. However, those are being prototyped and developed right now. We don't have anything to show at this point, but within the next release or two, we will start to be able to show the other data analysis aspects of the platform. And I think that's probably good enough for now.
All right, thanks for that awesome walkthrough, Woody. I don't know if this was actually a question I meant to ask way before we jumped into the demo itself. I don't know if you managed to talk about some of the changes in terms of our development process and, like the introduction of Fabricator into how we do things within the team. Did you talk about that yet?
I did not talk about that.
Okay.
I can briefly.
Yes, please.
We are still using GitHub for our code management, and we still take, I shouldn't say that we take issue requests there anymore. We don't. We have switched over to a tool called Fabricator. Fabricator allows us to have very, very good code review. And so the development process for V3 is largely based around the idea that every single change that happens within the platform is done through Fabricator and is code reviewed by the entire development team. And each one of those changes is then vetted and verified, and it's we make sure that the code that's going in is good and stable, and that everyone's questions are answered before any changes are actually made to the system. We also use Fabricator for multiple other aspects, including mock-up review. Fabricator has a built-in tool that allows Chipchumba to upload designs and get feedback from the developers, answer questions about how the user interaction is supposed to work. And in addition to that, the primary reason, or one of the primary reasons for using Fabricator, is that it allows us to have a much more agile method of development and to be able to track what is being changed in the system better. So Fabricator, by having the code review tools, it also allows us to manage tasks more effectively and is based around a sort of Scrum style of agile development, if you're familiar with that. And what that allows us to do is have a fixed 2-week release cycle, which we started with the beta 1 release just about a month ago. And so every 2 weeks we will release a version of Ushahidi. We will track the changes that happen there, but we are working less on a sort of milestone date-based approach and more on a feature-based approach. So every new release that happens each 2 weeks should have a couple of features in it and some bug fixes. And so we kind of focus on both the features and the bug fixes together as part of that 2-week cycle. The other thing I guess I should mention is that the architecture of the Ushahidi platform on the back end from a developer standpoint is done much differently. There are multiple layers of abstractions, and I will be writing a series of blog posts starting with the next release, or thereabout, give or take a day or two on either side. And each one of those blog posts will explore a little bit more in depth how the architecture of V3 works, how it is meant to be extensible and reliable, and allows for very clean and sort of easy to understand code style, and keeps everything very well compartmentalized and organized in such a way that you will, as a developer, you will never have a question about where something is happening, because it will only happen in one spot, and when you find that spot, that will be the only place that you need to worry about it. And again, I will be detailing that through a series of blog posts starting in about a week, give or take a few days. And I expect to be doing 1 to 2 blog posts per week to explore that and explain that in more in depth for all the developers out there.
All right, thanks, Woody. So for any of you who are watching this live stream right now, I want to take the next 15 to 20 minutes to answer any questions or field any comments that you may have. So this is your time. Speak now, forever hold your peace. In the meantime, as we're waiting to see if anyone else has any questions within the team, does anyone have any comments or anything more they'd like to add beyond the stuff that Woody's just talked about and shown? Specifically Japchumba, because I know that some of the work that, rather, the work that you're doing is really directly related to our user base, because you're the one who's mocking up and creating exactly what V3 is supposed to look like. So I don't know if you have any comments or any questions or any concerns or anything you'd like to share with us at this point.
No, actually, I just wanted to I'm just here as a listener. I think that's the majority of what I do, is just listen to the feedback and take lead from the direction that our whole team is taking with the different releases. So I'm just here to listen to whatever kind of comments or suggestions that anybody has. Yeah.
Alrighty. Anyone else?
I just remembered that I forgot to mention something fairly important about the V3 platform, and that
Okay.
is the wide range of test coverage that we have. The entire API is feature tested and runs as part of a continuous integration process. So all of our complete API is all feature tested, and all of our architecture is specification tested, and then we also have unit tests that test the various actual implementations of the architecture. So I know that testing was a big pain point with V2. So with V3, it's very much being developed around the idea that everything needs to have a test, and we need to verify stuff all the time. So our continuous integration process has already helped us tremendously and allows us to react to bugs that happen quickly, even through our beta process, where we still are trying very hard to make sure that the builds and the tests are functional all the time.
All right. So, I mean, I'm sure this is a question that's probably running through most of the people who are watching the streams minds right now. So, as a developer, because actually all our releases of V3 till now have been really centered towards developers. If I wanted to jump into V3 and help, what do I need to do, or what tasks would be available to me right now? So basically, it's just asking where can the community jump in to help with V3 development right now?
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, bug reporting is always an option. I will say that with a caveat that we are in beta, and so we know that many things are broken, and so just reporting that something is broken is not necessarily helpful. However, if you can find bugs with things that are supposed to be working, that's very helpful. The first thing that you would need to do is get a Fabricator account. You can log in with GitHub, and that will automatically create your account, and that will be your login access. We do approve accounts, so every new user that signs up via GitHub or otherwise will be approved. We try to do that as quickly as possible. Usually you should get an approval or an approval message within a few minutes, but it may take as long as, say, 12 hours or so. So that's the primary thing. And then it was linked below. Angie linked our roadmap for V3, which is our workboard. And if you look at the workboard, we have this column in there. We have 4 columns, one of them being we have the backlog, we have the next iteration, we have the bike rack, and we have the external projects backlog. The external projects backlog should not be focused on by the community at all. The next iteration is things that the team is focusing on for the next release, and the bike rack is features typically features that we think are good ideas and we want to have, but we have no bandwidth to work on at this point. So if you are a community member and you're a developer and you want to get involved, working on things that are in the bike rack is by far the most amazing thing that you could be doing, because that's things that we we want to do, but we just don't have time for. So if anybody can pitch in and help out with things that are on that, that would be the best.
Alrighty, thanks, Woody.
Can I add one more
Yes?
thing? It's
Yeah, sure thing. Go ahead.
I think we have some an elementary migration tool, but I think that's a really good place for people who already have some kind of deployment going to test V3 with. Is with we can't handle the more complex migrations yet, but basic Ushahidi deployment we can to some extent, and would love to get some feedback on that as well.
So I guess the other question I'll throw back is, how much has been done on the migration aspect of things so far, till now, basically?
One of our tests that we have in the system is we take a vanilla, plain, non-customized V2 database that has some hundreds of reports in it, and we migrate that into a V3 database. And so that's a test that we run every time a change is made in the system. And so the tool is there, it's functional, but we're only testing it with a single, relatively large, but only a single data set at this point. So if you have your own deployments and you can use that tool to test against and report any bugs that happen, that would be very useful to us.
All right, thanks, guys. Japchumba, is there anything right now that you feel the community could help you with as well from the design side of things? Sorry, I know I keep putting you on the spot. You keep saying you're just listening.
I think much like Woody was suggesting in terms of bugs, I guess there's a different ways of thinking of bugs for design, which is basically any questions or feedback on workflow. If there's certain things that are problematic or difficult with the demo, that would be great feedback for us to get back on how we can make the workflow easier or better, or if there's any questions on how to use V3. I know that we're going through a process of creating documentation that will make it much easier for anyone who is going to be migrating from past deployments to the current V3. So basically, I think this is in terms of the design, where we are in design, it's a great time to actually just get feedback from whomever is experimenting and working on or thinking of using V3. So I think that we're going to make available different tools for feedback, so being on the loop of that will be very helpful for everyone involved. I don't know if Angela, if that's answering your question, or...
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. Don't worry.
Yeah. It's like really late here. That's why I'm hesitant.
I know. It's like past midnight here anyway. Speaking of documentation, I think that's also been one of the biggest or the major pain points for deployers on version 2.x. We have a manual that hasn't been updated in a while, and we're always receiving requests about how best practices revolving around the use of Ushahidi for different use cases. We're doing some work on that, so I will let Mr. Baker give us an update on what the plans are moving forward, and then I'll jump back into how we'd like to plug the rest of our community into that entire process.
Excellent. We have not forgotten about documentation, and we have certainly heard from the community in terms of exactly what Angie said here, in terms keeping the documentation at the forefront of what we do and keeping it in a place where it's going to be a lot more editable, so that we don't fall victim, I think, to the formats as well. It was not a case of not hearing folks, but a case of having it in certain vehicles between PowerPoint and Microsoft Word and means in which updating the documentation became kind of a trial for us, both for the technical community as well as just general users of the system as well. In both cases, we've got better ways now in which we're generating the technical documentation right out of the application itself. And for just administrators, users of the platform, we've partnered with our friends from our community, John Crowley and Jennifer Chan. John, working through the World Bank and the GFDRR department within that, has actually just published the OpenDRR guide. No stranger to this field and no stranger to us. Jen, we partnered with back in 2011 to do the first set of toolkits for dealing with outreach, dealing with the installation of the platform itself, and overall the strategy of how does the Ushahidi platform fit into a broader strategy for engaging with the community and really delivering something of value in the end. All of these things, along with the help, actually I should give a nod to our friend Anahi, who developed the first V2 documentation as well, wrote the whole manual, over 100 pages, so big love bombs to her as well. In all cases, huge contributions from our community and things that we want to make sure that as we revitalize those for V3, we're doing so in a way where we can keep these things, again, as I said, at the forefront of these. So we're bringing out members of our community again to help us to make sure we have the resources due to up front, to make sure that what we develop is done so in a way where as the platform launches and as it evolves, we can evolve the documentation as well. And I'm very excited that we really are incorporating a lot of what we heard, not just in terms of the upkeep, but in terms of delivering something that is accessible, that is extensible, and that really speaks to creating something that's not just observational in nature, but operational, so that as we roll out these V3 deployments, right alongside that download button, we've got these things right there, so that as you roll out your application to your users, you can also give them the documentation that they're going to need to be able to manage these things responsibly, and also think about how, again, this fits into a larger ecosystem, a larger engagement strategy. So you'll be able to find those right on the website, right next to where you sign up for the, further down the road, the hosted version, but the downloaded version as well, right there. And yeah, it's exciting to have that up front and to know that that's absolutely scheduled to launch along with our final coming up in just a couple months here.
Thank you, sir. So I guess it's pretty clear, you know, the entry points for the rest of our community in terms of where you can help. If for the developers, you know, Woody and David have talked about, you know, helping in with migration or filing in any bug reports. But for the people who are not necessarily geared towards the technical aspects of the system, you can actually jump in and help us figure out how to best frame the planning of how to use Ushahidi. So over the next few weeks, even as we're doing the bi-monthly releases, we're planning on hosting some virtual and maybe physical meetups revolving around development of toolkits. And then, you know, moving forward, maybe we could even decide or get to the point where we're gearing those towards very specific use cases. It could be toolkits for election monitoring, toolkits for journalists, toolkits for human rights mappers and things like that. So let's just always have that in mind, that we are opening up doors for you to jump in and help us, because at the end of the day, Ushahidi is a tool that was built for you, right? And in the spirit of open source, we really love to get all of you engaged and all of you on board in terms of helping us build this out moving forward. Right. Man, I don't see any questions. You guys are all set in terms of the demo, right? Or maybe it just means that you need more time to go through the demo link. You could take in as much time as you need to just go through, have a look at what stuff is in there. If you haven't created a Fabricator account, please go ahead and do so. I shared a few of those links on our Google Plus page. If you need any help, feel free to reach out to any one of us and we'll be able to hold your hand through it, I think. Does anyone on the team have any closing remarks they would like to share?
I'll jump in. I just want to say thank you to the community, actually. Every opportunity to say thanks is certainly welcomed, as we've welcomed so much of the feedback. There's been a lot of feedback, not only on just kind of where the pain points were, but really, I think a lot of the development that we've seen now has come out of a place of trying to respond to how we take something here, we take the V2 platform out of something that's been able to help people around the world promote transparency for their causes. And now we're really transitioning. To me, it feels like we're really transitioning towards something that's going to help them promote accountability and create an environment for themselves, for their organization, for their community, that really does speak to messaging around what do we need to collect in terms of data here that we can actually turn into information, and whether that's speaking truth to power or collecting things that can further existing causes here, be that election monitoring or even just, as we've seen other things, snow removal, all the way down to finding the best places around town to get a bite to eat. This is really where the flexibility has come from, is those conversations in the past, and we wouldn't have gotten here had it not been for all of the wonderful examples of all the things we never would have thought of on our own, and all the feedback that's come out of that. So, as always, a huge thanks.
Thank you, Rob. So just before we close, I think we have 2 questions. So Fosna has a very basic question. She wants to know how will the V2 report categories be displayed on V3? So I guess that also means that we, as we move forward, we need to kind of explain the transition in terms of terminologies and all that stuff. So yeah, posing to Woody, David, Robbie, how will report categories on V2 be displayed on V3?
So I'm just trying to get my head around that again. What was the exact question? Is is this like if you're migrating from V2 to V3, how will your categories kind of move over?
I guess for her, I think it's more, yeah, basically transitioning over from version 2 onto version 3. How will the categories be displayed? Because I think people are very used to you have the sidebar with all the different categories listed, and then you're able to filter them down according to that. So just that main difference is what she's asking.
Yeah, so the approach has changed a lot to them being tags, and I think to some extent there's still a bit of wrangling in the design of how that works. It's actually an open question I had with Chumba recently, is like, how do we, on a V2 deployment, like categories are the first thing you see, right? And they tell people a lot about your deployment in terms of like what categories you collect informs people a lot about what kind of reports you're collecting. So there's sort of an open question of how do we make them a bit more front and center. In the current design, like where you see them is, if you click into the tag search, you'll see the list of what's there. And if you look at the listing of posts, you can see each post has a list of which tags are associated with it. We've lost a couple of things sort of in the process of things like hierarchies for tags. And there's a bit of, we sort of want some of that back, but we also don't want to make it overcomplicated, right? Like V2 suffered from this problem of people using categories to solve every problem. Like, you used what should really have been custom fields are often treated as categories to make like 3-level deep hierarchies, and it's like, it's better to treat that as 3 different custom fields a lot of the time. But trying to work out like how there's still some open question of like, how do you resolve the way we used to do it in 2.x with the way we're doing it in V3, if that makes sense. I don't know if that was really an answer, but yeah, if you can look at and play with the demos and kind of tell us which bits wouldn't work in that design-wise, that is helpful, right?
Exactly. Jeff, did you have a... Okay, go ahead.
Chumba made a point here, and I think that it's important to also mention that we have a concept of sets now, which are somewhat similar to categories, but they're basically a bucket in which you can put different kinds of reports, and they can be automatically generated or they can be curated. And so I think that sets, the combination of both tags and custom fields and sets, are really the answer to that question. So as Robbie said, in V2, categories might have been abused in some ways by trying to solve everything with a category. And so we're trying to offer tools that better reflect the real needs. And so we think that that's reflected in sets and tagging and custom fields.
Yeah, I would follow up though. The problem we are still going to hit at some point, right, and is that if you're coming into a clean V3 deployment, using the new tools is really easy. The tricky bit is going to be like, how do we give people this ability to migrate their old V2 hierarchy that, it might have been kind of an abuse of categories to have all the stuff in categories, but we still have to migrate their old data somehow. And so I get that's still a bit of a challenge to us, really. Some of that out, and to some extent people will have to, you'll import it and then you'll try and transition your way to the newer tools as you go, I guess.
And this is also a great opportunity to ask the community for ideas on what our final dashboard would look like. And I'm sorry, I have a soundtrack back here, but but no, I mean, because again, it's a good point how that hierarchy will be surfaced in V3. We're still not there yet. I mean, that's a great question for how you would be able to sort and organize on that main page of your Ushahidi deployment. I'm sorry about the noise.
No worries, David. Woody, you had one more closing remark to make?
Yeah, I mean, it was a more general closing remark. I guess I'll also answer Alex's question before that. He asked that if we had any metrics on the extent of contribution to development in Ushahidi core team versus community and developers. With platform version 3, as of right now, we have very little community contribution, just because so much stuff has been in flux for a long time. So at this point, I would say that we have very little. We do track that through GitHub, and we can pull those metrics. At this point, we don't have any real data to show about community contribution, just because there's so little. And then my closing report or closing remark was just going to be that I'm pretty much always around on IRC. The irc.freenode.net, the common open source network, and there is an Ushahidi channel, and I'm there to answer questions regularly. So if any developers want to come and ask questions about the platform, I'm usually there during the day, US time.
Thank you, Woody. I think mine would basically just be adding on to what David was saying. Now would be a really good opportunity for you guys to just jump in and play around with the demo and start thinking about how this would practically apply to all your deployments. Because at the end of the day, it's your feedback that will help guide us in terms of how to build V3 out. And then even just putting out a very open call to all the developers out there. We're very open for you to jump in and help. Woody talked about sending in bug reports, or just jumping into the bike rack. There are a lot of features that are up there that are necessary, but we don't necessarily have the time to do so. It's an opportunity for you. Maybe the next time we're having this conversation, we have any questions revolving around contribution, we'll be able to tell you that, hey, we have this number of developers contributing to our software. So just open call and throwing the ball back to you guys. Alrighty, I think we're more than 4 minutes over time. But I'd like to say thank you very much for taking the time to join us this evening, afternoon, or night, or morning in my case. Looking forward to hosting another demo with you guys as soon as we're done with the next release. In the meantime, please stay tuned on all of our channels, Twitter, Facebook, IRC, like Woody mentioned, on our forums. I'm going to share the links to all of those in just a bit once we're done with our broadcast. But yes, thank you very much for joining us, and we are definitely looking forward to having you guys join us again in the future. So I guess I'll say bye, guys.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, Angie.
Bye.